Good morning, friends. I say friends because it's a lot easier to share among friends, right? We're all friends here. I did write out what I wanted to share because it kind of keeps me on point. As my students know, I tend to interject and go long in classroom. So I want to stay on point. If you don't know me, I'm Lynette. I'm from the nursing department here at Geneva. And I was asked to come share a time when God was present in my life. And it was hard to narrow down what I should share today. You see, I and my family have experienced some harsh circumstances, and some of those were due to a fallen world, and some of those circumstances were consequences to choices. And I don't like being at the center of circumstances, and not many people do. I don't seem to accept them gracefully. I usually, take a little temper tantrum when I'm in the middle of circumstances. I struggle with thankfulness and thanking God for all things, even in those hard times. I just want out. I want it to go away. And I'm not sure if you can relate, but as Christians, we think we merit special favor, that life will be easy. And that's not the case, and it was not the case with my son's alcohol addiction that started at age 15. These were the struggles that drove me to seek God's help with God's people, and I turned my life over to Christ to help me through some very dark times. But life did not get easier. It got harder dealing with the consequences of the decisions. Many do not know that I lost my son to his battle with addiction 7 years ago. And I don't know what I would have done without my faith and family, church body. So was God present in my life, comforting, is that me? Comforting and consoling me? Absolutely, but there is more to share. If you've ever read the book of Esther, which is one of my favorite Old Testament books, you will see a story about God's presence manifesting purpose without ever mentioning God at all. Esther was taken from her family, placed with the king, and God blessed her, and the king lifted her up to be queen. And you may think, queen, wow, that's great circumstances. She became the highest in the land, but it wasn't great circumstances. She was taken from her people, made to change her appearance, practices and beliefs to fit in. Her Jewish people were being persecuted. She had to speak to the man who raised her through a mediator in a gate, that man being Mordecai, and he sent a message that said, Esther, do not think that because you are in the king's house alone Don't think that because you are in the king's house, you alone of all the Jews will escape. For if you remain silent at a time as such as this, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish. And who knows, but you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. So fast forward 7 years after my son passed, on a Wednesday morning, 4:30 a.m., I received a fateful call. My twin, my closest person, shares my DNA, called to say, he's gone. And I heard that same voice and the devastation that came out of me 7 years ago. And as I tried to make sense of it, she relayed to me that my nephew was killed by the girl he loved. And I threw items in a bag to go to her, but before that, I went to my parents' house 3 miles down the road to wake them and let them know they lost another grandson. So in the days following, my twin, between sobs, asked me, how could we both have to endure tragic loss? How can God allow this to happen? Sifting through that question carefully, I let her know that God did not cause this, and he was the only reason I made it through. And the words of Mordecai, Esther's uncle, in the book of Esther ring through, and who knows, but you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. Mordecai truly meant royal. I mean, Esther was queen. But as believers, as part of God's chosen, we are elevated to royal. We are meant to see our circumstances as a meaningful purpose, plan of God's deliverance. And I was helpless to spare my sister from the deep pain and trauma, but I was not helpless in pointing her to God's healing. And in a moment that was very raw, I was able to say to her, there will be a different time dissection in our lives from now on. Life before, when they were here, and life after, when they are gone. But I went through it first, so I could be with you, and you trust. I know. At Geneva, we say you were made for this and to live on purpose, and that's because we are made for God's purpose, to live our life above the daily deadlines and menial tasks. My challenge today is to look at your life circumstances differently. God has pulled me closer to Him more than I ever thought possible. But how do you use your difficult circumstances to comfort others? Because we were made for that purpose. Thank you for letting me share.